afternoon to all of you who are listening and watching from Europe, and good evening to the audiences who are watching and listening from Indian subcontinent, and good morning to uh, our audiences who are watching this live stream from America and Latin American countries. Many thanks once again for your support. As you know, Saudha Society of Poetry and Indian Music is hosting this important session of world cinema, and as part of this continued effort, we are hosting this international Satyajit Congress from yesterday. Fortunately, many leading directors, leading academics joined yesterday as part of Satyajit Congress. Today is the finale of the Congress, and we are also honored to have uh, some wonderful directors and academics as part of today's Congress. So let me introduce all of our today's speakers. This is an honor to have film director, one of the leading directors in India at this moment, uh, Sri Gautam Ghosh, as part of today's session. And I would like to introduce all of our speakers now. But in the meantime, I would like to request all of our audiences who are watching now, if you kindly share this to your timeline for your friends to watch it. So this is streaming live from Saudha Bangla Music Festival and also Saudha's YouTube page. Some of you who are not familiar with Saudha, Saudha is one of the leading platforms that promotes Indian classical and equally global music. But again, it also promotes world philosophy, contemporary philosophy, contemporary arts, global arts, especially classical arts and classical music, as some of you perhaps are familiar with our uh, revolutionizing art initiatives so far, especially live events that is Saudha has a great strength for. So many thanks again to our audiences and speakers. But let me introduce our panel speakers. Some of the speakers have joined now, and some will join in different phases. This is an honor to have, like I mentioned, this is an honor to have leading directors, one of the leading directors in India at this moment, Gautam Ghosh. Gautam da, many thanks for joining. The whole Congress is honored to have you. And I would like to, unfortunately, you were muted. Gautam da, if you kindly unmute yourself. Yes. You need to perhaps unmute. I'm just going to send a request so that you find, and if you just press on unmute. This is Gautam da, did you find a request to unmute yourself? You're muted now, so you perhaps have to click on mute. Yes, we can hear you now. Yes, great. Thank you.
Okay now? Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you very much for being a part of it, Gautam da. I'm just coming back to you. I'm just introducing all of this. We have Omitananda Das, a writer, an editorial, he's a member of editorial board of Sandesh, and he's the son of Nalini Das, the cousin of Satyajit Rai. Many thanks, Omida, for joining as part of today's Congress, and a warm welcome. We also have Javed Siddiqui ji, who is a screenwriter who worked with Satyajit Rai, and I personally look forward to listen to his memoir. with Satyajit Rai. So many thanks, Javed for joining as part of today's session. Uh, Pushpinder Chaudhary, the director of London South Asia Film Festival, and that festival is also happening at the end of May. Many thanks, Pushpinder, for joining. Uh, and Tapadhir Bhattacharjee, a leading academic, a leading theorist, and former Vice Chancellor of Assam University. Many thanks, Tapadhir, again for joining as part of today's session, and a warm welcome. We have Enric Barnelis Alvarez, a friend, an academic, professor of North Colorado University. Many thanks, Enric, for joining. Warm welcome to today's Satyajit Congress.
Thank you so much, Armen. Thank you, Saudha. I'm very pleasant to be here to pay tribute to the extraordinary work of Satyajit Ray.
Thank you.
A filmmaker that I admire and having here in my background. I need to have his presence in my life every day.
Thank you. Thank you, Enrique. I'll come back to you. We have Akram Hussain, who joined from Bangladesh. He is General Secretary of Chowk Film Society at Shah Jalan University. Thank you, Akram, for joining, and a warm welcome.
Thank you, Kaisar Bhai and Saudha Society of Poetry and Indian Music. It's such a great opportunity for us to part of this program and have great speakers on celebrating the Satyajit Ray's 100th birthday. Thank you.
Thank you, Akram. And we also have one of the leading Tagore singers here in the UK, Sanjay Dev, who will be singing some songs that is composed by Satyajit Ray. Many thanks, Sanjay Dev, for joining, and a warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Kaisar Bhai, for having me. It's a great honor. And I love to listen to all of the great personalities here. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. We have also Ashwin Devasundaram, a senior lecturer of Queen Mary University of World Cinema. Many thanks, Ashwin, for joining, and a warm welcome. So let us come back to Gautam Da. I know you made a documentary on Satyajit Ray, and then you worked so closely. You have such a warm and fond memories with Satyajit Ray. And also for the audiences in London, Gautam Da's film is being screened in BFI 26th of May. So those who can manage, please come and join. I will personally come and go to this film.
Thank you very much.
Pushpinder will explain perhaps, but Gautam Da, over to you now.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or maybe good afternoon in some places. It's indeed a great pleasure to join such wonderful speakers and luminaries. Actually, you know, for almost for 1 year, we have been trying to celebrate Ray's birth centenary, but unfortunately, in this pandemic day, we really couldn't do it, you know, physically. And yesterday was his birth centenary, actually 2nd of May. And people of Bengal have given a befitting tribute to Satyajit Ray by defeating a divisive force in the assembly election. So we were really happy, but because Ray himself was a great humanist, and in his last 3 films, he was very critical about superstition, about the middle-aged values, about human oppression, about war, valuelessness. All these things came in his last 3 films. Actually, not only Ray, but even look at Akira Kurosawa. They are concerned about the crisis of civilization. So, in a way, in today's world, I think it's very relevant to remember Ray, because he was worried about our civilization, where we are heading for. So I think, you know, we have so many things to learn from Ray. His world attitude, his state of mind about human beings and civilization. And also, I appreciate, as Kaiser mentioned, that since I had the experience of, or rather opportunity of making a film on Ray after his death, 2-3 years after his death, and I had the opportunity of working in his study, because Mrs. Ray and Shandeep, his son, opened the study for me to shoot, and had gone through his notebooks, or the script books, rather, the quite famous Kero Khatha, or the Red Book of Ray. I think, those books were like a workstation. If we call workstation nowadays, those books were like that. Extremely detailed script with small little frames of each and every shot. Then on the other leaf, there are so many notes, maybe some illustration, some notes for another story, so many things. It is unbelievable, because, I think he was such a great mind, and the mind was always working. I think he was working 24/7, either writing script, or shooting a film, or writing a story for children, or making a lot of illustrations for Shandesh, the famous, and Amritananda Babu is here, and you can tell about this. And Shandesh was his true love, because, he inherited it from his father and grandfather. So he was always busy, always busy. And I always wondered about his time management. That was fantastic, in my opinion, because he was doing so many things. But at the same time, I remember meeting him several times, that he was doing a typical, he used to get involved in a typical Bengali adda, or a chat, laughing, and still working on an illustration. His mind was shifting, talking to people, but doing an illustration for the children magazine Shandesh. It's absolutely amazing. And I think, he's a man of all seasons, and he's a perfect example of tradition and individual talent, because the family tradition was there. Grandfather, father, mother, Ray's mother, I think, had a great contribution in his life. And of course, his education in Tagore's University in Shantiniketan. Altogether, he had a great beginning. But I think he was a very attentive student on each and every aspects of art. He learned everything so sincerely, and he remained a student till the last breath of his life, because he was always learning. I remember I used to visit him sometime between 4 to 4:30 in the afternoon. And every time I went there, I was listening that, from the inside the room, music is coming. That was perhaps his time for listening to music. He was listening, I remember once a Chopin, and another time a Mozart. Even it was his practice, the learning, listening music. And I think many of you know that, in his childhood, the great notations of these masters, where his bedtime reading, he used to read notations. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So a man of, I think one of the last Mohicans of Great Bengal Renaissance. I think we can pay tribute by practicing human values, positive emotion, and total dedication to art. He led a very modest, simple life, because, he never cared for becoming a very rich or wealthy. He was totally dedicated to his creation. So that's my humble little bit So little what I can say about Ray and my little experience working on his documentary, where I rediscovered Ray. It's unbelievable because in his workstation you find everything, and a tremendous great mind. So that's all for the moment. I'm so sorry that I have to leave early because today I have a chat with children about Ray's film and his literature. So they are all waiting for me. So I'd stay for another 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and open a little dialogue with you or listen to you. And I'm so happy to meet all of you over this window. Maybe one day we'll meet physically. That's a hope, great hope, hope over hope.
Exactly. Many thanks, Gautam. Any specific memory you'd like to share? I mean, when the name Satyajit comes to your mind, any specific memory you come up with?
So I think a multifaceted person. Meeting him is always a pleasure. And a lot of people thought he was very sort of reserved kind of person. No, he was so amiable, full of humor, tremendous wit, and he was perfect with children. So many sort of children from the members of Shandesh magazine used to visit him, and that was his great pleasure. I think and always it was very helpful. I remember my film Antarjuli Yatra, The Voyage Beyond, was sort of opposed by the censor. And Ray was the first person to protest, and it was almost a headline news next day in all the newspapers. And he challenged the censor board, why you have stopped this film. So he was very helpful and, very strong. He had this very strong mind, and he was not too much biased, but he had a very open mind, but also very, very, very strong, very determined, I would say.
Thank you. Many thanks. Let us perhaps now come back to.
And I'm very happy to meet Pushpinder, and I believe that you're showing my film. Unfortunately, we couldn't release the film because of pandemic. It's a great pain because
it's great to have that film at the British Film Festival. We are going to miss you being there.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But the full season for Satyajit Ray is being organized in partnership with BFI later in the year. So hopefully, if everything goes, we would like to see that documentary and you
absolutely
talking us through. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Saying yes to your film.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. Let us come back to Javed Siddiqui ji. Javed Siddiqui actually worked quite closely with Satyajit Ray. Javed Siddiqui is a Hindi and Urdu screenwriter, dialogue writer, and playwright from India. He has written over 50 storylines, screenplays, and dialogue. During his career, Siddiqui ji has collaborated with some Indian prominent filmmakers, from independent directors like Satyajit Ray, Uttam Benegam, Yash Chopra, and many others. So over to you, Javed ji, and if you kindly share your take on Satyajit or your memory of working with Satyajit Ray. If you kindly unmute yourself, because you are muted at this moment, if you kindly unmute. Javed ji, can you hear me? If you kindly unmute yourself. No, you have to unmute yourself first. On your mobile, from the device you are using, you perhaps have to click on and unmute yourself. If you can hear me. Yeah. It hasn't been, so it has to be unmuted. mute and unmute. That became the new normality in these days now. Hello. Right. In the meantime, we have many audiences who actually joined and leaving so many wonderful feedbacks.
Now, can you hear me?
We can now.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Please go. Please go.
So, thank you, Kesar, and very nice listening to Gautam Da.
How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm so happy to meet you after many years.
Oh, yeah, sure thing. So, I think I'll prefer speaking in my own language, and that was the language Satyajit Ray was also liked, and he wanted to learn, but unfortunately he couldn't. So मैं कहानी थोड़ी सी यहाँ से शुरू करूं कि हम सब लोग उनको मानिक दा कहा करते थे। मानिक दा, मानिक का मतलब होता है जूल, और सच बात यह है कि वो एक जूल ही थे। तो मैं तो जब शतरंज के खिलाड़ी मुझे लिखने को दिया गया उसके डायलॉग, तो उस वक्त तक मैं जर्नलिस्ट था, न्यूज़पेपर्स में काम करता था। मैंने कभी सपने में भी नहीं सोचा था कि मैं फिल्मों में जाऊंगा और डायलॉग लिखूंगा, और डायलॉग की शुरुआत भी होगी तो सत्यजीत रे की फिल्म से होगी। लेकिन उसका बैकग्राउंड ऐसा था कि वो एक फिल्म बनाना चाहते थे जिसका बैकग्राउंड 1856 था, और उसमें जो उर्दू बोली जाती थी उसके लिए उन्हें एक ऐसा आदमी चाहिए था जो अच्छी जबान लिख सके। और बहुत सारे लोग थे जो लिखना चाहते थे, लेकिन उन्हें कोई नॉन फिल्मी आदमी चाहिए था। तो मेरा नाम सजेस्ट किया गया, मेरी दोस्त शमा जैदी ने उनको मेरा नाम सजेस्ट किया जो कॉस्ट्यूम्स बना रही थी। एंड आप बिलीव कीजिए कि वो मीटिंग जिसने मेरी पूरी लाइफ चेंज कर दी 45 बरस पहले, वो मीटिंग सिर्फ 3 मिनट की थी। मैं सत्यजीत रे से मिलने के लिए गया, उन्होंने मुझे देखा। उनकी एक आदत थी, बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग आदत थी, कि जब वो सोचते थे तो अपने चश्मे की टांग अपने दांतों में दबा के उसको चबाते रहते थे। तो वो मुझे अपने टांग मुंह में लेके मुझे देखते रहे। फिर उन्होंने एक लाइन बोली, आई एम टोल्ड दैट यू आर ए वेरी गुड short story, right? I said, sir, nobody can be a good judge of his own work. If you want, I can get some of my work translated and you can have a look. And he laughed. And as Gautam Da said, उनका लाफ्टर जो था वो बड़ा प्यारा लाफ्टर था, मतलब विदाउट एनी मैलिस, बिल्कुल बच्चों की तरह मुंह खोल के बड़ा सा लाफ्टर उनका। और वो हंस के उन्होंने कहा, नो यंग मैन, आई कैन लुक एट यू एंड दैट्स इनफ, यू आर राइटिंग द डायलॉग। सो उसके बाद हमने डायलॉग लिख दिए, लेकिन बहुत सारे लोगों को यकीन नहीं था कि ये लड़का जिसने कभी पहले फिल्म लिखी नहीं, जिसे मालूम नहीं कि फिल्म की राइटिंग क्या होती है, ये डायलॉग लिख रहा है। तो इसने पता नहीं इसने क्या लिख दिया होगा। तो प्रोड्यूसर साहब ने बहुत सारे बड़े जो उर्दू के प्रोफेसर्स थे और हेड्स ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट थे या बॉम्बे के, उनको एक जगह जमा किया और मुझसे कहा कि आप पूरा स्क्रिप्ट सुनाइए। तो मैंने वो पूरा स्क्रिप्ट जो था वो सुना दिया, फर्स्ट फ्रेम टू द लास्ट फ्रेम, एंड कोई कुछ बोला नहीं। तो मुझे लगा कि आज तो बेइज्जती करके निकाली जाएगी यहाँ से। लेकिन थोड़ी देर के बाद एक आवाज सुनाई दी, और एवरीबडी नोज के मानिक दा यूज्ड टू हैव दैट baritone voice, fantastic voice he had, booming, and he said, well, I don't know what he has written, but it sounds very good.
Oh, wonderful.
So that was the first compliment. तो वो मैंने लिख दिया. अब उसके बाद उन्होंने मुझसे कहा कि now Javed, you have to tell me what have you written. So I had to translate my own dialogues in my Babu English and used to explain why I have used this particular word and that particular word, because Urdu has changed a lot since 1857, 56. And like every other language, every language goes through the changes. So the Urdu has also changed. So at that time, Urdu was very different. So when I translated the whole thing, he told me, it's all very well. You have written very good and this very idiomatic, very rhythmic, and everything is fine. But who's going to the coach my artist? Because the artists are, of course, Hindi speaking and they can speak Hindi. But the problem is that the people over there, and especially my assistants, they are all Bengalis. So they are going to make a mess of it. So you better come over. So I was promoted to be the dialogue director. So from dialogue director to dialogue director, so I went to Calcutta. And when I saw those people were collecting tidbits for creating Lucknow in Indrapuri studio. And that was a very funny sight, because there's many of those people, all those assistants over there, the poor people, they didn't know that what kind of material, what kind of utensils, what are things are being used used to be in Lucknow. So अभी वो तो मैं उसमें लग गया. मैंने कहा भाई ये तो बड़ी गड़बड़ वाली बात है. लखनऊ में वो बड़े मुंह के मटके यूज नहीं किए जाते हैं, छोटे मुंह के घड़े यूज किए जाते हैं, और उनको एक सीढ़ी जैसी लकड़ी की बनाई जाती थी और उसके ऊपर उनको रख दिया जाता था ताकि वो गिरे नहीं. तो मैंने वो लकड़ी वकड़ी बनवाई और वो क्या, एंड ही केम एंड ही सेड, सो यू नो ऑल दिस आल्सो. I said, Manikda, when I see that something wrong is happening over there, so I'm trying to being helpful. He said, okay, this is from today onwards, this is your department. You have to collect the material for the sets of the Mirza's house and me's house. So Shama Zaidi and I used to. One thing which I want to especially mention in this meeting, कि वो आदमी जो था वो एक किसी भी हैसियत से एक ऑर्डिनरी आदमी नहीं था. इसलिए कि कुछ ऐसी क्वालिटीज थी जो मैंने उसके बाद, जबकि मैं उसके बाद मैंने दर्जनों डायरेक्टरों के साथ काम किया और अच्छे डायरेक्टरों के साथ काम किया, वो मुझे वो क्वालिटीज नजर नहीं है. एक तो ये कि उस आदमी में एक अजीब सेंस था, एक थर्ड आई थी उसकी, जो वो चीजों को देख सकते थे. मेरा एक बहुत बड़ा एक आर्टिकल है, उसका टाइटल है क्या आदमी था रे, एंड which was published in my book of pen portraits, and I think that article is translated in so many languages and it's appreciated. तो उसमें जब मैंने लिखा है कि मेरे साथ यही हुआ कि उन्होंने एक लड़के को देखा और कहा तुम डायलॉग लिख रहे हो. बीरूत के एयरपोर्ट पे उन्होंने सईद जाफरी को देखा और सईद जाफरी उनसे मिलने के लिए आए तो कहा कि यू आर द वन आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर, यू आर प्लेइंग मीर. तो इस तरीके से उस आदमी का एक अजीब सेंस था जो वो एक नजर उनकी बड़ी अजीब थी. ही यूज्ड टू माइन्यूट स्टडीज, बहुत छोटी छोटी बातें. जैसे उन्होंने मुझसे कहा कि you have written beautiful lines, no doubt, but a dialogue is a piece of information. Don't give the information unless and until it is required. मतलब उन्होंने कहा देखो, अगर जब तक विजुअल बोल रहा है तब तक डायलॉग नहीं होने चाहिए, कोई वर्ड नहीं होने चाहिए। जब विजुअल बोलना बंद कर दे तो उसके बाद आप डायलॉग। आई थिंक इट्स ए गुरु मंत्र फॉर ऑल दोज डायलॉग राइटर्स हु आर ट्राइंग टुडे। ऐसी बहुत से छोटी छोटी बातें हैं। मैं इसलिए ये बातें कर रहा हूँ कि उनकी लाइफ क्या थी और वो उन्होंने क्या काम किए, वो तो उस पर तो किताबें लिखी जा चुकी हैं, लोग बहुत बोल चुके हैं। लेकिन बहुत छोटी छोटी बातें जिससे पता चलता था कि वो आदमी इतना एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी क्यों है। जैसे मैं एक बात आपको बताऊं कि एक दिन वो मीर रोशन अली के घर का सेट लगा हुआ था, बंसी चंद्रगुप्त उसके आर्ट डायरेक्टर थे। वो फाइनल टचेस दे रहे थे, तो वो आए, उन्होंने सब देखा। फिर देखने के बाद कहने लगे, बंसी, आ, रोशन अली में मीर रोशन अली गरीब आदमी है, उसके पास पैसे नहीं है, और बहुत दिनों से उसने अपने घर में पेंट पॉलिश नहीं कराया है। ये दीवारें ऐसी लगती हैं कि जैसे इनको अभी हाल में पेंट किया गया है, तो इनका कलर चेंज कर दो। तो बंसीदा ने कहा कि हाँ ठीक है, मैं कर दूंगा। बट व्हेन ही वाज गोइंग बैक, सडनली ही नोटिस कि एक बड़ी बाल्टी के अंदर वो बड़े बड़े ब्रश जिनसे पेंट किया जाता है वो भीगे हुए हैं, क्योंकि ब्रश अकड़ जाते हैं अगर उन्हें भिगो के न रखा जाए। तो उन्होंने वो एक ब्रश उठाया और दीवार पे पेंट करना शुरू कर दिया, और वो गंदा पानी पूरा उसका बाल्टी का वो उन्होंने लगा दिया, और जगह जगह धब्बे लग गए, गंदा हो गई, पूरी दीवार गंदी हो गई। और कहने लगे, दिस इज द लुक आई वॉन्ट, दिस इज द लुक ऑफ पावर। सो ये बड़ी छोटी सी बात थी, बट इट शोज इट। जैसे एक और मुझे एक बात याद है कि वो जिस तरीके से अपने एक्टरों को डायरेक्ट किया करते थे। मैंने बहुत सारे डायरेक्टरों को देखा है, जोर से चिल्ला के बोलते हैं, जो बताते हैं, ये करते हैं वो करते हैं, लेकिन मानिक दा कभी ऐसा नहीं करता। एक सीन था, एक सीन है शतरंज के खिलाड़ी में, कि वाजिद अली शाह जो है वो मुहर्रम के जुलूस में ताशा बजाता हुआ जो है वो जा रहा है, और इंदरपुरी के में रोड जो था उसके ऊपर ही ये जुलूस निकल रहा था, मुहर्रम का जुलूस, सब काले कपड़े पहने हुए मातम करते हुए जा रहे हैं। और कैमरा जो था वो क्रेन के ऊपर था, और वो कोई 25-30 फीट ऊंची क्रेन के ऊपर मानिकदा खुद बैठे हुए थे, क्योंकि एवरीबडी नोज दैट मानिकदा यूज्ड टू ऑपरेट द कैमरा हिमसेल्फ। शोमेंदु रॉय यूज्ड टू बी द person who used to do the light earlier, and then Manikda used to take over. तो वो बैठे हुए थे ऊपर, एंड एक दो रिहर्सल हुई। उसके बाद सडनली उन्होंने इशारा किया कि क्रेन नीचे लाओ। तो क्रेन नीचे आया और वो उतरे, और उतर के अमजद के पास गए, और अमजद के कान में उन्होंने कुछ कहा, और फिर वापस जाके क्रेन पे बैठ गए, और क्रेन चला गया और शॉट हो गया। तो मैंने गौर से देखा कि इन्होंने क्या कहा और क्या चेंज हुआ, लेकिन कुछ भी चेंज नहीं हुआ, जैसा था वैसा ही रहा। तो बाद में जब वो टेक हो गया, तो मैं अमजद के पास गया और मैंने कहा, अमजद भाई, ये मानिक दा ने क्या कहा था आपसे? कहने लगे, सिर्फ इतना कहा था कि जब 10 कदम आगे आओ तो जरा सा ऊपर देख ले। अब ये बात एक डायरेक्टर वहां 30 फुट ऊपर बैठ के चिल्ला के भी बोल सकता था, बट दैट वाज सत्यजीत रे। ही केम डाउन एंड ही इन्फॉर्म्ड अमजद व्हाट टू डू। ऐसे बहुत सारे छोटे छोटे किस्से हैं कि वो जो, जैसे मुझे याद है कि एक फिल्म में एक छोटा सा शॉट है कि शबाना जो है वो बहुत गुस्से में है, मिर्जा मिर्जा साहब की बीवी, और वो जो है वो शतरंज के मोहरे लेके और उनके जाती हैं, और मिर्जा साहब और मीर साहब के ऊपर फेंक देती। ये सीन सबने लोगों ने देखा हो। एक वो एक कॉरिडोर में से गुजरती हैं, वो उसके साथ ट्रॉली चलती है और शबाना को फॉलो करती है। तो मानिकदा ने मुझे बुलाया, कहने लगे कि जावेद, ये पीछे जो कोर्टयार्ड दिख रहा है, ये बड़ा काला काला सा, बड़ा सुनसान है और मुझे अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है। इसको इसको मैं कोई ब्रेक दे सकते हो क्या? तो मैंने कहा, दादा आप कहें तो मैं यहाँ कोई चीज रख दूं। कहने लगे नहीं, वो अच्छा नहीं लगेगा। फिर कहने लगे कोई रेड चीज अगर होगी तो ज्यादा अच्छा हो। तो मैंने कहा मैं एक काम करता हूँ, बीच में एक वायर बांध देता हूँ, उसके ऊपर कोई लाल कपड़ा सूखने के लिए डाल देता हूँ। ऐसा यूपी में तो अक्सर होता है, जो घर के जो कोर्टयार्ड होते हैं उसमें कपड़े सूखते हैं। कहने लगे नहीं नहीं, वो भी अच्छा नहीं लगेगा, गंदा लगेगा, तो कुछ और सोचो। खैर सोचते सोचते बात ये आई कि बीच में, उस कोर्टयार्ड के बीच में एक बड़ा सा चूल्हा बनाया गया। चूल्हा के ऊपर एक बड़ा सा बर्तन रखा गया और नीचे आग लगा दी गई। तो आग के जब वो रेड फ्लेम्स उठना शुरू हुए, तो मानिकदा jumped out of the trolley and he started dancing and he said, look 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 through the व्यू फाइंडर, देखो कैसा लग रहा है, इतना खूबसूरत लग रहा है। दैट एब्सोल्युटली लाइक ए चाइल्ड।
Exactly.
हालांकि आप ये देखिए कि वो
Thank
सीन
you.
जो है, वो शॉट जो है, वो मुश्किल से 3 सेकंड स्क्रीन पे रहेगा, लेकिन ये कि वो उनको एक उस परफेक्शन चाहिए था, वो मिला।
Exactly.
ही वॉज द ओनली पर्सन, ओनली डायरेक्टर जो एंटर होते थे फ्लोर के ऊपर, तो जब तक पैकअप नहीं हो जाता था शाम को, तब तक बाहर नहीं निकलते थे। दिन भर बैठे रहते थे। लंच टाइम पे पूरा फ्लोर खाली हो जाता था, कोई नहीं होता था, पुलिस भी नहीं होते थे, लाइटमैन भी नहीं होते थे। एक आदमी अकेला अपना बई बई खाता लेके बैठा रहता था और एक हाथ में उनका मिष्टी दोई और उनका वो चिकन सैंडविच जो उनका लंच होता था, बस। एंड
Thank you. Yeah. Javadji, please. Yeah. Please continue. Hello.
आर यू टेलिंग मी समथिंग? नो नो,
Yeah.
आई एम अबाउट टू रैप इट अप। तो
Yeah.
व्हाट आई
Yeah.
माय
It,
ओनली डिजायर इज दैट अब
yeah.
सेंटिनरी के टाइम पर उनका एक कोई
Would
बड़ा
it be possible
अच्छा,
to talk in English, because we have some non Indian audiences as a speaker
yes,
and also
my,
as an audience.
well,
Thank you.
I'm wrapping it up and I can speak in English also. But
Okay.
my only desire is that at this time when we are celebrating 100 years of Satyajit Ray, there
Yeah.
should be a memorial, a really memorial, uh, a real tribute to the great master. And that's the only desire I have. And I I would love to see that memorial wherever that is, whether in Calcutta or in Bombay or anywhere, because he was a great master, and we should all salute to that great master. Thank you so much.
Javed bhai, we are building a museum on Ray in Calcutta.
Wow.
So
Great.
let's hope.
Please,
Wow.
please invite
Wonderful.
people.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Javadji.
And excuse me.
For your anecdote. Yes. Yes, Gulkunda. You were
See you.
trying to.
Bye.
Okay. Our next speaker is Dr. Pushpinder Chaudhary, MB, a trained psychotherapist. Pushpinder has dedicated over 38 years of her life to both assisting the neediest members of the community while educating authorities to their predicament. Seeing the positive impact of films, have with mental health and well-being, especially that many films highlight certain special issues that trigger thought-provoking discussions. She founded the not-for-profit organization Tongues on Fire Limited, with year-round events and organizers of the annual UK Asian Film Festival. The film festival was previously known as the London Asian Film Festival and is currently in its 23rd year. Congratulations on this, Pushpinder. What a great job you have been doing. The organization provides a platform for independent film and arts with a link to South Asia, celebrating its culture, vibrancy, and its many dimensions through storytelling, live events, masterclasses, and cinema screening. Further, providing a platform for emerging talent to showcase work, to kickstart discussions regarding social and political issues raised in the particular film screening, offering networking occasions with industry leaders, and providing wider learning opportunities for the filmmaking community. Many thanks and congratulations for
Thank you.
tremendous job.
Thank you very much for
And look forward
me.
for the London Asian Film Festival, which is being screened
Yes.
in BFI.
Going to be, yeah. Thank you so much for this kind introduction. I'm really happy to be here and talk about our film festival. This year is going to be our 23rd film festival, and the theme for festival is Ray of Hope, and we are celebrating in May the birth centenary of Satyajit Ray. So yesterday and today, I have been delighted to listen to all the stories, anecdotes, and all about his life, his work. And I especially enjoyed Gautam Ghosh's input about how he worked on his documentary, and we are looking forward to having his documentary and him over to London when things get better, and next year we will be celebrating with BFI centenary of Satyajit Ray. I also enjoyed what Javed had been saying. I love the language that he was communicated in Urdu, which was just such a delight. So coming back to the festival, we just didn't want it to show his films. We wanted to go beyond the message that he was trying to portray through his films. The man he was, the humanity he actually showed through his films. So what we wanted to do was to encourage and showcase work that has been inspired by Satyajit Ray's work. And that was one of the reasons we had selected Gautam Ghosh's film Rahagir, which is going to be screened as opening film for our festival at the British Film Institute. End of this month is on the 26th of May. We would have loved to have invited Gautam Ghosh, but whatever is happening in India at the moment, it is difficult time, and there is very limited or no travel. So some of the activities have been postponed till next year. But coming back to this year, another innovative idea to engage young people had been that we awarded 9 young people to create a 3-minute short film which has been inspired by Ray. Ray's work. It could be his music, it could be his script, it could be his visuals. So our work is concentrated for this festival is to take his legacy beyond his films. And so for me to listen to today and be part of today's discussion and has been not only pleasurable, but also informative to get under the skin of this amazing man who had produced such films. And the message of humanity and kindness is just so important for whatever is happening in India at the moment. We need time to heal, time to understand, have collective grievance and collective sadness, and to mourn about what devastating effect this this situation, this coronavirus is having. And that's why, in addition to the films that I have already mentioned, the theme is ray of hope. We want to look up to positivity that he sent out as a message to people. And I hope that you would, whoever can, join us on this festival. Come and visit us. Look out for our festival. It's going to be from 26th of May to 6th of June, when we celebrate all that is fun, kind, empathetic work beyond his films, but within his message. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pushpinder. I'm just trying to read some comments. I can see many comments are coming from real film enthusiasts. The Vashish Chakraborty speech by Javed Siddiqui was short. I'll see if we can come and sweet. I'll see if we can come back to him in between. Thank you, Devashish Chakraborty. Marcia Mar, a poet. Can you create a polyglot social poetry to leave the life-saving legacy? And Shantanu Goswami, I don't find it yet. Shantanu Goswami, Ray talked about migration and migrant. So did you, Sri in par, or Sar in par. So that is for Gautam Ghosh, actually. Would you agree that socially relevant topics making into popular cinema is due to such efforts? Gaby Sambasity, a wonderful poet, British Argentine poet, is watching and leaving comments. So many thanks to those who are watching and sharing this. This is important, actually. If you think that this is educational for you, or this is giving you space to engage in something meaningful, so please do share and let your friends be the part of this wonderful Congress. So this is the finale of the Congress, as you know. Yesterday, we had a wonderful lineup of directors and academics, and today is the finale. Today, Gautam Ghosh just finished, Javed Siddiqui just finished, and after Pushpinder, I would like to come back to Tapadhir Bhattacharjee. So Tapadhir is a leading literary theorist, a poet, and a former vice chancellor of Assam University. Over to you, Tapadhir. We'd like to explore your own take on Satyajit Ray. And just to let you know that Omitananda Das, the son of Nalini Das is a poet as well. Nalini Das's nephew, and also son of the cousin of Nalini Das was the cousin of Satyajit Ray. Just to let you know, we would like to have the anecdote from Komitananda Dash as well. Sanjay Dev will give just after Tapadhir's speech or Tapadhir's input. I would like to have a bit of music actually, and then we'll come back. We'll do music perhaps in between, and that was composed by Satyajit. We have Andre, an academic, but also a cinema enthusiast as well. We'll come back to Enric as well. So we have Enric, who's the professor of North Colorado University. So over to you, Tapadhir.
Thank you, Kasa. I am indeed delighted to be here on your invitation because we are celebrating today the birth centenary of none other than Satyajit Ray, the great master. And for many of us, he is perhaps the last of the Mohicans, true representative of Bengal Renaissance ideal, the ideal of attainment of full humanity, who preached humanism throughout his life. And when, with rapt attention, when I was listening to what Mr. Gautam Ghosh was sharing with all of us, a wonderful creator himself, because many of us, or perhaps all of us, have witnessed the likes of Antarjali Yatra, and he is known for his uniqueness, his individual perception of art and the medium of film. And thereafter, the reminiscences of Javed was indeed unique, because these are priceless. You cannot have them if we do not listen to those anecdotes firsthand from the likes of Javedji. So for me, he is a wonderman. From many years now, we have been fascinated by his creations in the film medium, starting from Tapadhir Bhattacharjee. And based on, as all of us know, on Vibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay's eternal fiction, a fiction which is dateless, which is timeless. And yet that dateless fictional creation was truly translated into another medium and was a masterpiece, like the masterpiece of the great painters, the great musicians, and whatever you can think of. And from Tapadhir Bhattacharjee to Aparajita to Apur Sangsar. But let me not enumerate because all of you are aware. But do you know what I did yesterday? And what Gautam was telling us, I agree with him, St. Parson, because yesterday was a tense day for some of us when we were eagerly waiting for the results to unfold from the West Bengal state election, assembly election. That was going to be a game changer, perhaps, for the contemporary history of our country, that is India. And fortunately, the thing unfolded in the right way, because it was a fight against all sorts of non-democratic aggression on individual dignity and also the future of a nation, perhaps. But let me not go into the details. Do you know what I did personally in my own way? I actually, maybe for the 15th or 16th time in my computer, I was viewing Gupi Gain Baghabain. And after even maybe 15th or 16th or 17th time, I found that it is speaking even now in a language to me. And those who are accompanying me, my young nephew and also my wife was there. And in his music, all of us know, he was a great musical composer. His understanding of musical nuances is absolutely fantastic. And the anecdotes that we have learned from the reminiscences of Mr. Javed, we understand what Satyajit Roy was to us. Now, as a person whose mother tongue is Bengali, and luckily I can read Satyajit Roy's fiction for the adolescents and the children's literature in the language in which it was written. And I am a great fan of him, even now. His Feluda adventures, the science fiction on Professor Shanku, and other wonderful stories, short stories, or you may not call them short stories too. These are a new genre by themselves. So the versatility which is expected from a Renaissance personality, we found in him. But even these things are not that much important at this hour. After the results of West Bengal Assembly election were published, I was all the time thinking of again reviewing, again seeing for maybe for the seventh time or eighth time, the particular themes called Devi or the goddess, which was done by Ray in his early career. And then also in his mature years, he gave us Oshoni Sanket, again a great fiction written by Vibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay, the composer, the writer of Tapadhir Bhattacharjee, the Song of the Road, if you translate it into English. Oshoni Sanket means it's an idiomatic expression in English. And it tells us about the human story during the great famine of 1943. And lastly, in his late years, he gave us Ganoshatru. In English, it will be enemy of the people. All these three films speak in a different language to us in these trying moments when, very unfortunately, history is trying to rewrite itself in a completely wrong way in the Indian subcontinent. Not only in India, I would say rather in the Indian subcontinent. Bigotry, religious fanaticism, superstition are eating us alive and eating into our vitals. And that was a creative protest. I remember the great saying of a person who in the early years during the First World War, he was known, of course, for some other reason. He was an exponent of what is called Dadaism in European literature. That he was Tristan Zara. He wrote, "The new artist protests. He no longer paints." And like also, likewise, Satyajit, he protested against all the darkness which are engulfing us from all sides. He did not simply make a film for our artistic creation. Now, this reminds me of a critic named Vasarian Velinsky, who wrote, "One cannot paint from life well without creative talent, as one cannot create a lifelike fiction without it." But that statement is to be interpreted in reading between the lines. And if we read between the lines, what we find is a pure and simple a message. There cannot be any art which does not register its protesting voice when something is wrong in the society in that historical epoch. And as we are preparing in our own way, different ways, of course, in the different around the globe, to celebrate his life, to celebrate his centenary means celebrate his ideas, celebrate the spirit of his life, the messages of his life as exactly as possible, because he tried to penetrate the world of not only ideas, but also the spirit of the epoch in the correct manner possible. In that way, he was defined by history. Ray was defined by history, and he created history in his own way. There is no time, perhaps today, to go to elaborately discuss what I personally, as a very ordinary cinema goer, film goer, I get from Tapadhir Bhattacharjee, from Aparajita, and more particularly about the three films that I have just now mentioned: Devi, goddess, then Ashwini Sanket, famine, which was in fact a famine which was created by men in the British colonial period in India. And thirdly, that was perhaps a forewarning to all of us, which was issued by Ray himself in Gano Shatru, enemy of the people. Who were the real enemy of the people? I am not going to exemplify them further, but you will find in today's India with abundance presence. So what is expected of us today, as I understand, that it is impossible to interpret correctly the place of a creative personality in the caliber of Satyajit Ray historically, if we do not understand his basic attitude to the happenings, historical, social, around him. And in that way, we can only evaluate his deeds and acts correctly. That correctly, this word I'm using in a theoretical sense, because a pure poet, a pure writer, there is nothing purity, but it's just for saying, I'm saying, there's somebody you may claim for purity in the aesthetic sense, but it's more important to be correct than to be pure, I think. And in that count, Satyajit Ray was the aesthetically correct personality for all of us. And this is corroborated by the fact that even in his birth centenary year, after he has departed from us, we find in him, rather we search for him, for true meaning of our own epoch, which is very complex, which is very complicated, which is self-negating, and if you permit me to say so, which is suicidal, perhaps it is a suicidal frenzy. And if we want to protect ourselves from the suicidal frenzy, I propose that let us try to interpret Satyajit Ray's the microcosm as depicted in his films and maybe extended in his literary works in the true spirit of our epoch. And only in that way, the role of artistic imagination displayed by Satyajit will become meaningful, because ultimately to understand the meaning of meaning is the thing that matters. So thank you, Kaisar, once again for giving me an opportunity just to share some of my thoughts with you, because it is a gathering of all illustrious persons in whom I am perhaps a misfit person. Thank you anyway for giving me that
thanks,
opportunity.
Tapadhir. Many thanks. So just to let our audiences know, we are heartbroken by what is happening in India, especially in relation to the infection of COVID. And just a message to the audiences who are watching from India or Bangladesh. We would like to stand with all of you. So art and literature shouldn't be alienated in that way. Although we are doing this live streaming, equally we know some of our speakers are affected. Many of our friends are affected by this epidemic. And this will be a great opportunity for us if we can be of any help. So please let us know. And also, I would personally like to pay our gratitude to all of the partnering organizations that have played a tremendous role to promote this Saudha International Satyajit Congress. That include Nehru Center, Queen Mary University, especially the film department, Ashwin Devasundaram, who is also the part of this Congress now. And the Granthi, a friend of us, Shamim Shahan, and Radharaman Society, and more importantly, Chok Film Society of Bangladesh, Shaja University of Bangladesh. And there are many friends who are helping this Congress relentlessly from behind the scene, and one among them, Shaheen Mitul, a poet and a concert organizer, and also Gauri Chaudhary, a very authentic interpreter of Indian subcontinental music here in the UK. So many thanks for all of your support, and especially the others, Shamol, Thor, Ruhul Amin Chaudhary, and Mustafa Monar Sujan, a prominent journalist from Bangladesh who are also helping this. Devashish Chand of Ajkal in India, who are helping this Congress and promoting this event to wider audiences. So many thanks from us. So before I go to other speaker, can I have a song in between? And that is being composed by Satyajit Ray. So Satyajit Ray is equally known, mainly known for his phenomenal film, definitely. And then he's also, as you know, he's also to some of the audience, some of the readers, he's equally regarded as a wonderful writer and fictionist. And then again, a wonderful music composer. So let us have a song. We'll listen afterwards another 2 or 3, but let us have one song in between, and that is being presented by Sanjay Dey, an interpreter of Indian music, especially a phenomenal Tagore singer here in the UK, and also the founder of three wonderful organizations, which is Niyam, Robika, and
Oh,
so many thanks, Sanjay Dev, for joining, and over to you.
oh,
If you kindly sing a song composed by, especially Satyajit Rai's Hirok Raja Deshe. We have discussed about this before.
Thank you so much, Kaisar Bhai. I was really listening to the wonderful speakers. My regards to Gautam Ghosh, the famous film director, Javed Shahab, wonderful. I mean, I could really listen to him for like consecutively for 7-8 days. It's so lovely to listen to so many wonderful incidents from Javed ji. And also my regard to Pushpinder ji, and also to Tapadhir Da. It's really it's a great privilege to be a part of this one. Now, you have requested me to sing one song from Satyajit Rai's film. So this is from Hirok Raja Deshe, and I'm so fortunate to meet a wonderful singer named Amar Pal. I think he has recorded one song for Satyajit Rai's film, which is from Hirok Raja Deshe, but he has already told me that, he was very upset that this song was not in the record. At that point of time, there is this record which was published, but this song, all other songs were there except these songs. But this is in the film, and what I think this is very relevant. What Tapadhir was saying, and with great respect to all of the other speakers whom I am going to listen, this is very relevant nowadays. So that's why I have chosen this song, sung by Amar Pal and composed by Satyajit Ray. So this I am going to sing for you. Yes, just I have done with this one. কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়ায়, ও ভাই রে ও ভাই, কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়ায়, আমি যেই দিকেতে চাই দেখে অবাক বনে যাই, আমি যেই দিকেতে চাই দেখে অবাক বনে যাই, আমি অর্থ কোনো খুঁজে নাহি পাই রে, ও তার অর্থ কোনো খুঁজে নাহি পাই। কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়ায়, ও ভাই রে ও ভাই, কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়ায়, আমি যেই দিকেতে চাই দেখে অবাক বনে যাই, আমি যেই দিকেতে চাই দেখে অবাক বনে যাই, আমি অর্থ কোনো খুঁজে নাহি পাই রে, ও তার অর্থ কোনো খুঁজে নাহি পাই, আমি অর্থ কোনো খুঁজে নাহি পাই রে, ভাই রে ভাই রে, কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়া। দেখো ভালো জনে রইল ভাঙা ঘরে, দেখো ভালো জনে রইল ভাঙা ঘরে, আর মন্দ যে সে সিংহাসনে চড়ে। দেখো ভালো জনে রইল ভাঙা ঘরে, আর মন্দ যে সে সিংহাসনে চড়ে। সোনার ফসল ফলায় যে তার দুই বেলা জোটে না আহার, সোনার ফসল ফলায় যে তার দুই বেলা জোটে না আহার, হীরার খনির মজুর হয়ে কানা করি নাই, ও তার কানা করি নাই। ওরে ভাই রে, ওরে ভাই রে, ভাই রে, কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়ায়। ও ভাই রে, ও ভাই, কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়ায়। আমি যেই দিকেতে চাই দেখে অবাক বনে যাই, আমি যেই দিকে চাই দেখে অবাক বনে যাই। আমি অর্থ কোনো খুঁজে নাহি পাই রে, ও তার অর্থ কোনো খুঁজে নাহি পাই রে, ও তার অর্থ কোনো খুঁজে নাহি পাই। কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়ায়। ও ভাই রে, ও ভাই, কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়া। Thank you so much for asking me to sing this song.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much, Kaisar Bhai. Another thing, I just want to add that I'm so fortunate that I have seen Satyajit Ray quite closely while I was in his exhibition. One French photographer who has taken so many photographs while he was shooting, from Tapadhir Bhattacharjee to Aguntuk. So, and Tapadhir Bhattacharjee and Aguntuk, these two films are my most favorite, all of them. And others are absolutely there, but it's very difficult to choose from all of his films. But again, I have seen him quite closely, and I didn't disturb him, to be honest with you. I was rather I was observing him, that how he was watching his own these photographs, and he was like moving from one side to another side. There was all the exhibition was like the numbers were there, like 1, 2, 3, 4. The numbers were there. He was not maintaining that one. And I have seen his childishness while watching these photographs. It is all about him. And he was watching how these how this photographer has captured him. He was observing, like, where there is a crow is there in that photograph, and where the camera, he was observing the camera, he was drenched with by the rain. That photographer has taken this photograph as well. So he was watching all of this, and I was observing him, how he was doing that. So that was my experience all about Satyajit Ray, and my great respect to that great film director. Thank you so much for having me once again.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you for more singing from your project, Dashi. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to next speaker. We're going to have our next speaker, but in the meantime, those who are leaving wonderful comments, I will try to come back after the next speech. We have Omitananda Das and Henry Alvarez, who joined from USA, Omitananda Das from India. Omitananda Das is, like I mentioned, is the member of editorial board of Sandesh, is the son of Nalini Bose, who is a wonderful poet, the nephew of Jivanananda Das, poet Jivanananda Das. And Nalini Bose was the cousin of Satyajit Ray. So he has, I imagine, quite warm memories of Satyajit Ray. So let us have the anecdote from Pamitananda Das.
Kashyap bhai, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Ah,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you. Just to let you know that Sangeeta Dutto, our next, another speaker, has also joined. So, we'll have our interpretation on Satyajit Ray again today. So over to you, Amita, now.
Being in the family, I have known Satyajit Ray for over, say, how many years? 40 years. Since 1950s. And since between 1970 and 90, I was connected with the Sandesh magazine, and I attended the magazine's the meetings of the magazine Sandesh. Sandesh was started by Satyajit's grandfather Upendra Kishore Rai Chaudhuri to provide healthy reading material for children so that they grow up as mature human beings, mature and human beings. The tradition was carried over by Sukumar Ray and Subinoy Ray before the magazine folded up in between, and 1961 Satyajit Ray revived the magazine. For over 3 decades, he edited the magazine, and initially it was started as a proprietorship concern. Later on, it was converted into a non-profit literary cooperative, and the head office moved to our home, and the magazine has been at our home ever since 1964. So from 1964 to 2021, particularly between 71 and 92, I have worked with Satyajit Ray in the management of the magazine. He was very much concerned about providing healthy reading material for children. I am myself also connected with literature to some extent. I am not poetry, but some fiction. But Satyajit Ray's style of operation was that my mother, as a joint editor of the magazine, sorted out the submissions, then and the finally sorted out submissions went to Satyajit. He he received a lot of fan mail from the subscribers and read all of them. Particularly, he also directed the artists who illustrated for the magazine, and he was very particular about artistic style. For instance, if there was some illustration of animals, he told an illustrator to go to the zoo and actually sketch a elephant or a lion, so that the illustration is authentic. Then if there was an illustration of a boat, he told an illustrator to go to the riverside and exactly sketch a actual boat to find exactly how it is. So he was very particular about those things, stickler for details. And he himself started writing only after Sandesh was published. Before that, he had written two stories in English. He started to write in Bengali only after Sandesh was published. And ultimately, he went on to write over 150 stories and novelettes. Feluda detective stories, more than 30. Science fiction stories of Professor Shonku, and a lot of very original short stories. Say, like the story of a dog who could laugh, and so on. A man-eating plant, so on. But actually, the best writing, of course, are the scripts. I think he is one of the few film directors who have written all the scripts of all the films in Bengali he made. Only for the Hindi and Urdu films, he took help of other people. Some of the stories were his own, like Kanchanjunga and Nayok, which were quite good. I mean, among his best films. But the stories were his original. He never wrote them in story or fiction or novel. He straight away wrote the script. I won't take much more of the time because I am not really connected with films in any way. I am only connected with writing, editing, publishing. Thank you, Kaisa.
Many thanks, Omida. You gave a different dimension. We're talking about film, but Satyajit Ray has a different, I mean, a wide spectrum of activities actually, and that includes writing. And you covered that dimension. So many thanks for joining, Omida. Our next speaker is Enric Albans. Enric Barnless Albans, a friend and an academic. He's a assistant professor of North Carolina University and a Peruvian poet. He was the part of Gronthi and Saudha's literary activities, and also, I mean, a film enthusiast. He writes about film. So many thanks, Andre, for joining as part of this Congress. And I know that you love Satyajit Ray when you talked. So I personally would like to have, and we personally would like to have your own take on Satyajit's film. So how did you find it?
Thank you so much, Armen. I'm very happy to join you. I see familiar faces like Sanjoy Day or Professor Tapadhir Bhattacharjee. I'm very happy for the invitation. Thank you, Armen. Thank you, Shamin. Thank you, Gronte. Thank you, Saudha. I prepared a text that I would like to read about the legacy of Satyajit Ray. The name of the text is Satyajit Ray, Cinematic Legacy. Satyajit Ray, we know like the master then became worldwide sensation after he made the Apu trilogy I mean, Pater Panchali, Aparajito, Apur Sansar. And in the beginning of his filming career, he was influenced by the strong print culture of Bengal. This is very important to mention. Probably not many know in Latin America, probably in the USA, obviously in Asia and in the Indian subcontinent, everybody knows this. Well, Bengal, not many know that the Bengal region that includes nowadays West Bengal, state in India and the country Bangladesh, is still one of the strongest print industries in India and in the whole Asia. Bengali identity, that is a highly literary culture that blooms around a strong language like Bengal, create a structure that we may feel genius like Satyajit Ray, bloom and excel. One thing that amazed me the most of Bengali culture is the deep fusion between the mother tongue and the arts in general. I can see this also in Urdu language. Satyajit Ray had a deep foundation in humanities and arts that came from his studies in Rabindranath Tagore worldwide famous university. Tagore traveled through the world for years after he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1912 to collect money participation in auctions. He participated in auctions, selling his own art to create a unique university. That kind of initiative very much interested different educators in Latin America, the region I am coming from, that wanted to explain somehow Western military education, the positivist education. The horrors of First World War are a product of Western education system. Tagore's reform one that proposed a peace culture education system where the humanities and the arts were the cornerstone to create a new peaceful world. Tagore's influenced education projects in Peru and in the great immense education reform of Mexico, led by one of his biggest admirers, Jose Vasconcelos. In the reform of Vasconcelos also participated in the Nobel Prize of Literature, Gabriela Mistral, the Chilean. On the other hand, Satyajit Ray Rampa used to play music and the events that the Tagore family used to organize at their home. He was also, Satyajit Ray was the camera of his films. He was the editor, the scriptwriter. He did all the concerts, the sketches. He did the music. He mentioned the greatest Indian musician like Ravi Shankar wearing a costume to the music for film format of 2 to 3 minutes of sequence. In order to keep the friendship with his famous peers, he just decided to learn to create the music of his films. He watched tons of films. In this sense, he's a product of West and East education where Calcutta played an incredible part. He realized that Indian popular film industry lacked innovation compared to its Western peers. The wonderful discovery of what kind of cinema he would make came upon when he visited London and watched Bicycle Fit by Vittorio De Sica. That was a completely mesmerizing experience for young Satyajit that will blow his mind. Italian neorealist style of filming is product and consequence of the Second World War and the famine and poverty that came upon the whole continent, including Italy, that was devastated by fascism and his active participation in the mass extermination of people through those terrible years. Italian neorealist style is a cinema war, the war of the poor against the Hollywood riches with those bizarre multi-million productions. The selection of black and white over colored film was also a declaration of war against capitalist Hollywood. My favorite neorealist film is Roma Open City by Roberto Rossellini, who I consider my favorite in that filming style. So the trilogy of Apu was filmed following that style. Satyajit Ray would do what the Uruguayan Angel Rama would name as transcultural narrative to explain the indigenous literature of Jose Maria Arguedas, written in Spanish using a combination of indigenous and Western method of writing and telling. In some way, the first period of Satyajit Ray can be known as the transcultural filming, where certain elements of Western culture like Italian neorealism match the highly rich aspects of Bengali culture, and that makes highly impressive the strong Bengali middle class and the worldwide audience. The film I wanted to introduce is the only film that Satyajit Ray make in other language than his maternal Bengal of Bangla. I am talking of the Chess Players, 1977. Like many of the films made by Satyajit Ray, the Chess Players is inspired by a very famous Indian short story, or in general Indian literature is very inspiration for the films of Satyajit Ray. In Satyajit creations, film, script, and literature create intense dialogue and dialectics of musical and colorful consequences. Now everybody talk about the popular Netflix production, The Queen's Gambit, a Western postmodern oriented story of chess. Well, Satyajit Ray made a movie where chess, again invented in India, was central. This movie came out 2 years after I was born in Lima, Peru, my home country where we used to play chess as a kid, inspired like some of my peers of the importance that the chess playing in the Soviet Union, our strongest ally in the 70s. But this movie, filming in Hindi, expresses the contradiction of a country subjected by an immense colonial power like the British Crown and the infamous East Indian Company. The story tells two stories: the British annexation of the last independent Indian kingdom by the company in the name of the Queen Victoria, and the intense passion for chess by two noblemen Indian. But there is a third story, the story of how India's upper class is indolent to the suffering of their own people, and how his egotistic behavior made a whole continent collapse under the British hammer. The socialist political commentary of Satyajit Ray in this film, that is also a comedy, is totally evident. The chess game, as he said it explicitly in an interview, is a metaphor to explain the British complete annexation of India that in that time included Sri Lanka, Burma, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. And the failure of the upper class to resist this conquest. As is very evident in the film, Indian Rajas in the times of British imperialist expansion didn't care that the Western literally stole the riches of the continent. They only wanted to rule and to play a puppet's role that after the independence of India and the bloody partition was very evident. Most of the Indian royals were happily British subjects, and in most of their cases, they suffered the consequences of these alliances, opposite to the Indians' people needs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Many, many thanks, Andre. Our next speaker is Sangeeta Dutta. So Sangeeta Dutta is a writer, film, theatre director, singer, working between India and the UK. She's the director of the arts company, Boytok UK, which promotes dialogue, debate, and new work from performing arts, literature, and film. In 2020, during the lockdown period, Boytok was the first South Asian platform to offer a 5-part digital concert series, Connect, in April. Boytok produced a music video, Those Were the Days, of a Tagore translation by Javed Akhtar, and featuring leading artists Shankar Mahadevan, Kaushali Chakraborty, Shoumik Dutta, Patricia Rosario, for fundraising for COVID safety and migrant support in India. She also curated the Connect Monsoon edit in August. She's curating and presenting conversation series, My Life, My Art, which featured Shabana Azmi, Muzaffar Ali, Mira Ali, etc. So many, many thanks, Sangeeta Dutta, for joining again today. Yesterday, you gave a very eloquent and a profound, in some extent, critical input on Satyajit Ray's work. If you kindly share more on Satyajit Ray's work again. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back again this evening and to see familiar faces like Shanjoy. I don't know if I've missed some of his music, but I look forward to him giving us some more songs from Ray's compositions in this session. Yes, it's been, as I was saying, it's been a wonderful journey last evening as well, where you had a lot of erudite speakers and filmmakers. And I was talking about the shaping of our own sensibility as we grew up in those years of the 70s and 80s, how much of an influence, of a cultural influence, Satyajit Ray was on us, you know, when we were growing up in school and then in college, because as it wasn't just about making films which were making him well known in international cinema. He was so deeply rooted in Bengal, and he never left his city of Calcutta, the city where he was born, the city where he died. He never wanted to go off to Bombay and do Hindi films. So there was this very strong, entrenched rooting in Bengali identity. And then also that wonderful pathway to world cinema, where he was considered one of the greatest of international filmmakers. So as children who were growing up in Bengal, there was this enormous influence of Ray, not just as a filmmaker, as we just heard, his whole involvement with Shandesh, the children's magazine, which was a great treat for us every month to you know, with all the fiction, the writing, and his personal involvement with giving knowledge as fun, you know, teaching with fun, teaching with an to open up the window of imagination. He would often talk about that. And also, as your speaker said, to really send the illustrators to the zoo to get the right realistic illustrations which children would then look at, because we are talking about an age when there was no television and there was certainly no mobile phones. So it was completely print culture, and how interesting he made print culture for children, his own illustrations, his own, you know, the woodcut that even when he did his first, the lithographs that he did when he first illustrated Vibhuti Bhushan's Tapadhir Bhattacharjee, that was when he really got interested in the story, and he had to adapt it as a children's fiction for Signet Books. He did a lot of work with Signet Press. So it's really looking at a person who, of course, made wonderful films, and he was a great auteur there because he was writing his scripts, he was handling camera after the first few films. From Charulata onwards, he was handling the camera, he was doing the music. So there was a lot in his own hands. He was designing the costumes, and very often he talked about being able to be in control of the vision that he had if he kept all these departments with him. So all of that was exceptional. But besides that, this continuous writing, this continuous engagement with children's literature. I remember when we were in school on our birthdays, we started getting those collection of short stories. So Agdojun Goppo was the first 12 short stories that he wrote and published. And then every year there would be these collection of wonderful short stories, a lot of science fiction. And then came Peluda, who was the detective fiction that he wrote. And Peluda was the detective you know, who was our childhood crush, because he was this wonderful, handsome, brilliant, intelligent boy who could solve mysteries, and who would be smoking his Charminar, and in his head he would be solving his cases. So, you know, we would be reading Agatha Christie and various other Western detective fiction, but to have our own detective, to have our own solver of riddles and mysteries, that was an extremely interesting acquisition. So as I was saying yesterday, Feluda has now also celebrated his 50 years. So this is our generation and the next who have all grown up on those wonderful, brilliant stories of Feluda, two of which Ray made into films. So his detective fiction, I think, is also one area which should be looked at. There's lots of scope to look at the Golden Fortress, Shonar Killa, and Joy Baba Phelunath. And earlier, of course, also he worked with Uttam Kumar in Chiriyakhana. That's a film that is not much talked about, but again, his interest in mysteries and riddles and in punning with words, just the delight of the language that came through in his writing, that was extraordinary. So yes, I did want to mention the detective fiction, which holds a very important cultural place for us. And also this year, the BFI, the British Film Institute, is planning, I think it's going to be the world's largest retrospective of Ray, because they're planning to bring all his films together as a tribute in his centennial year. And I'm very privileged because they have asked me to program and curate this season. So I'm looking forward to that. And there will be many other, hopefully, digital online discussions like this, where we can have more people come and engage with us. But I think, while making my own film, Life Goes On, and also because actors like Soumitra Chatterjee and Aparna Sen, they have been sort of mentor figures in my life. They've also been very, very close friends. So we keep getting this inside picture on Ray. He was this much respected man, and we have that image of him sitting on his armchair in his study, which I have visited once in my life. But all the stories that we would get on the sets, how he prepared his actors, what is the sort of instruction he gave them, what exactly he wanted them to do, because he was very precise with them when they started as younger actors, as child actors. But they were part of Ray's stable. Soumitra Chatterjee, Sharmila Tagore in particular, they came back over and over again in his most important films, very, very often. Soumitra, of course, right till the end. So, just getting those inside stories about how he would direct them, what exactly did he want from them, reading the script together. When Aparna Sen, she was only 14 when she did Teen Konna, Shaumakti. Sharmila Tagore was only 13 when she was cast for Opur Sangshar. So when he brought in these young child actors, how did he deal with them? Some of them became stars, but he was dealing with child actors all the time. So starting from Oppu and Durga, he has been with child actors and engaged with them. And we've heard so many stories about how brilliantly he could interact and come to their level rather than trying to bring them to the adult level. He would talk to them at their level and be able to communicate with them. Even those extraordinary actors in Shonar Kella, the boy who played Mukul, some of them became stars and actors later, some of them didn't. But we remember each of these children, each of these, particularly the boys that he cast and he worked with. So again, his work with child actors, I think, is an area which could be talked about more, which could be researched more. And yesterday, just as I was saying, there are more contemporary filmmakers now who are talking back to Ray. There's this intertextuality. There are newer films which are inspired by some of Ray's own films. So Ghare Baire, The Home in the World, has been relooked and revisited and reworked by Aparna Sen, who's also made the film called Ghare Baire Aaj, The Home in the World Today. Srijit Mukherjee made Autograph, which was inspired by Nayok, which had this idea about stardom. What was the other film I was talking about? Yes, Kaushik's film called Opur Pachali, which actually went back to the child actor who played.
And Mrinal Sen also, I'm not sure whether that was, Mrinal Sen also made a new Oporajito. I read the script, but I'm not sure whether the film was made or any form. Are you aware of that?
No, Mrinal Sen didn't make an Oporajito. There's actually a new film now by Parambrata Chatterjee, who has made a new film called Obhijan. And that's more or less looking at Soumitra's life and the way his career evolved through Satyajit Ray's film. So that film will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll see it quite soon in London at the BFI. But yes, so this is a continuing tradition, and I find that the most interesting way of not just keeping a classic or a filmmaker on a pedestal and putting him up on an altar, because then he ceases to grow, then he is frozen into a statue or a picture, but to be able to keep this influence alive and to be able to talk back to him, to take his ideas and to generate new stories, new narratives. This, I think, is particularly fascinating. So these were some of the ideas I wanted to share, and I'm sure there are other speakers here, and I can come back later if necessary. Thank you, Amit. Thank you.
Thank you. Many thanks. Well, I forgot actually, but Diman Dasgupta edited some screenplay. That wasn't a film, but a screenplay, which is that is by Mrinal Sen, definitely. That Opu, New Opu, and that is called New Oporajit actually. New Opu is in America, and their parents are. I mean, the whole sequence. I mean, most of the sequences are based on the perhaps the selfishness of Opu's. I shouldn't mention in this Congress without being without having a confirmed check. But this is something I can remember. I'm not sure whether the film is being made, but Diman Dasgupta was suggesting that this film can be made after made by the new directors.
Yeah.
But many thanks for your beautiful input on the legacy of Satyajit Ray's work. Photograph, definitely. I mean, perhaps a deconstructive manifestation of deconstructive production of Satyajit's Nayak. And Kaushik Ganguly's another beautiful work that you have mentioned. So many thanks again, and let us have
yes, just a thing to sorry to interrupt you, Kaisar bhai. Shongita Di, really I have enjoyed your anecdotes and the way you mentioned everything. Some of the things I didn't know about, I was not aware, but absolutely it's amazing to listen to you. Thank you so much, Shongita Di.
Great.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Yeah, we are approaching to the end actually. Let us have we'll have the final note from each of our speakers. But before I start doing this, can we have some more music composed by Satyajit Ray and being presented by Sanjay Ray?
So that's what we have already discussed about this one. I'm just trying to do that. It's from Hirak Raja Deshe and composed by Satyajit Ray. So it's Gupi and Bagha. Now, I don't have anyone to act with me, along with me, but let me try for this one because you liked it. So how it started, when Gupi has seen the tiger, Royal Bengal tiger, in front of him. He couldn't be able to sing. So that's how it started, like sa ga ga, sa re ga, sa ga ma ga. And then Bagha was saying, Gan koi. Paye pori bag mama, paye pori bag mama, corona ko rag mama, tumi je ghare keta janto, tumi ghare, e ghare, e ghare, e ghare তুমি যে ঘরে কেতা জানতো, তুমি যে ঘরে কেতা জানতো, তুমি যে ঘরে কেতা জানতো, এই যে বিনা মেঘে পড়ে বাজ যে এ যে বিনা মেঘে পড়ে বাজ, কেচে বুঝি গেল কাজ, গেল কাজ কেচে, কেচে গেল কাজ, কেচে কেচে বুঝি বিনা মেঘে পড়ে বাজ, বুঝি বিনা মেঘে পড়ে বাজ, কেচে বুঝি গেল কাজ, দয়া করে থাকো হয়ে শান্ত মামা, কে বা জানতো তুমি যে ঘরে, কে তা জানতো তুমি যে ঘরে, কে তা জানতো। যদি ঘরে এসে বাবা, যদি ঘরে এসে পড়ে, পড়ে, যদি ঘরে এসে, যদি ঘরে এসে পড়ে থাবা, যদি ঘরে এসে পড়ে থাবা, বাবা থাবা, বাবা রে থাবা রে, যদি ঘরে এসে পড়ে থাবা, কি জানি কি হবে বাবা, হারা যাবে তাজা দুটি প্রান্ত, আহা, দুটি তাজা প্রাণ, আহা, দুটি তাজা প্রাণ যাবে হারা, আহারে হারা জানি, হারা যাবে তাজা দুটি প্রান্ত, কে বা জানতো তুমি যে ঘরে, কে তা জানতো তুমি যে ঘরে, কে তা জানতো। বাঘাদা, বাঘাদা, বাঘাদা বলি, হীরা নিলে কত শুনি, বাঘাদা, বাঘাদা বলি, হীরা নিলে কত শুনি, সময় কি আছে যে গুনি, তবু কত শুনি, নিয়েছি যথেষ্ট, তবে আর নিয়ে কাম নাই, এবারে চলো পালায়, আর নিয়ে কাম নাই, এবারে চলো পালায়, বড় কষ্টে পাওয়া গেছে কেষ্ট, যথেষ্ট, 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 যথেষ্ট। Thank you so much.
Wonderful, John. That was fantastic.
He brought drama even in the music. How beautiful. How beautiful. What a great
The drama and the humor, and
Exactly.
also that this was totally a
And sarcasm.
tune.
And sarcasm as well. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And the music style, you know, which is South Indian, which is
South
Karnataka,
Indian,
which is very
Karnataki.
unfamiliar to
Yeah.
Bengali music, suddenly bringing in a very different tradition of music. Wonderful.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, yeah. And the words he used in this one, keche buji gelo kaj. I mean, we couldn't think about it to use this sort of words in a in a song. Yeah,
It's, you know,
to put the humor. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Many, many thanks. Would you like to share any more? Or we are approaching to the end actually. So if
I
you
just
are
wanted
ready
to make one observation, Amit Bhai,
Please.
about Hirok Raja Deshe, because he's just sung the song, and to remind people, to all your viewers and maybe those who haven't seen the film, it's also about Gupi Bagha, these two village simpletons, and they've been given a particular boon by the king of ghosts, by Bhutir Raja, and so they can stupefy people. When they sing, then everybody becomes like statues, they become stupefied. and they also can command food, and they can have magic shoes, and they can travel everywhere. So it's like a fairy tale which Ray's grandfather wrote. But Hirak Raja Deshe was made in the context of the emergency years in India, when there was suddenly a very authoritarian government. And Ray so cleverly uses a children's story and apparently a children's film, but it is a satire, and it is it's a critique about the state of affairs in a democracy like India. When we had the emergency period, it was actually gagging of democracy. And yesterday, it was Satyajit Ray's 100 years, his centennial year. It was also the year that the Bengal elections were announced. And it, on one side, was a fantastic coincidence, but on the other hand, also, when Bengal said no to the right-wing fascist powers, when Bengal said no to communalism and said that they would work together and remain and retain their Bengali identity, I think it was a time of great pride. And I wrote about Hirak Raja Deshe yesterday, saying how a film made many years ago, how suddenly it is so contemporary, it is so important to look at, and it has something so credibly critical about recent times, when in a democracy like India, suddenly there is great rise of authoritarian power and great rise of right-wing thinking. The gentleman who's the Peruvian poet, I'm sure in a larger context, you would understand what I'm talking about. So in Hirak Raja Deshe, there was a king who would put everybody into a brainwashing machine. And so they would all come out saying, yes, yes, yes. He only wanted people to say yes. He hated schools, so he arrests the school teacher, he arrests the children, and he's just about to put them into that brainwashing, the Mogotulai machine. But then Gupi Bagha come and they start singing, so the king gets paralyzed. So that's how these fairy tale characters come, but they actually stop something very important. Like in the first film, they had also stopped a big war by bringing in food and feeding the hungry soldiers. So yesterday, so much of it was like really when art comes back in the course of history and suddenly becomes so pertinent, becomes so adapted.
And Sangeeta Di, you missed one song, what I already have sung today, that is like very relevant to this context, that কতই রঙ্গ দেখি দুনিয়ায়, দেখো ভালো জনে রইল ভাঙা ঘরে আর মন্দ যে সে সিংহাসনে চড়ে. So it's so philosophical, it's so apt now. It is really, so that's why I have chosen this one and sang this one. You missed that one probably.
Thank you, and let's come back to like I mentioned, we are just on the verge to end today's session, but I'm going to have the final note from each of our speakers. But I really loved your post today, Sangeeta Di, in relation to Viceroy's, what you mentioned so aptly and so impeccably, Viceroy's quotation and Bengali, and so especially so pertinent at this time, and especially after the election in West Bengal. I would like to come back to Ashwin Devasundaram. We are actually at the end, so if you'd like to, Ashwin was especially Queen Mary University Film Department was the partner of today's Congress, and many thanks for your support, Ashwin, in terms of promoting this Congress. If you'd like to add anything before we end, please do so. Ashwin, are you muted? I'm not sure. We can't hear you. Did you manage to? Right. Okay. Your sound is perhaps not. Can you hear us though? Okay. For some reasons, perhaps you can receive, but we are not receiving your sound. Would like to see whether it works. Or can I go to the next speaker? Right, okay, that's fine. Omidananda Dash, Omida, if you'd like to add anything before we end, please do so. Omida, but you need to unmute perhaps.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, Satyajit always had this concept of running an independent magazine that will help to provide creative and constructive literature to young Bengalis, children and adolescents. In fact, remember a time when Sandesh was struggling and a big publishing house wanted to take over Sandesh. So many of others connected with the magazine said they let them take over marketing and finance, then we can. But Satyajit said no. If they take over the and a big if they take over, then they will take over the editing as well. I mean, they will dictate the editing as well. Let them take over. So he refused, though the magazine was struggling for a long time, and it is struggling still.
Thank you, Omida. Enrique, if you kindly unmute yourself, and if you'd like to add anything before we end.
I'm very happy to be invited for this Congress. One thing that the majority of my colleagues here that celebrating the legacy of Satyajit Ray mention is the importance of politics, the moment of grief that we people in the world are experimenting because of this pandemic, the deaths that we are grieving. And one thing that we do artists, and I think I mentioned in other events that we share at Men, is that this reminds me of the history of the Seventh Symphony of Shostakovich, when the Nazis invaded Soviet Union, and how the people there in Leningrad, what is now St. Petersburg, put together the amazing symphony together to show the fascists of the world, then arts, that is the human soul, that belongs to the human soul, will beat any bigotry. No, it's what is something that I want to address here, because Satyajit Ray filmography and art is how arts can really reach the soul of the human people, and also not only in India, but everywhere in the world. And that is the reason we are celebrating him after 100 years of his birthday. No? So that is important. Music, literature, film, no? Is important also, not only medicine, not only the vaccine. I know it's important, the health, but the soul health also is important. No?
So true. Absolutely right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sanjay, because we agree with that. I mean, like you can save the bodies, but you need to save the soul. We are humans, bodies and souls, no? And what we do every day with our arts, with literature, with criticism, with all the things, the beautiful things we do every day, we create, we make, is part of the also this human belief that we need to address that issue, the human soul, no? And arts, literature, filmography is part of that mission as artists we have every day, no? To share with the people that is in need also this spiritual relief, that is a piece of poetry, a film, music. No? Thank you so much, Ahmed.
Thank you. Many thanks, Enrique. Ashwin Devasundaram would like to add anything before we end.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
We can. Great.
Fantastic. Okay, I don't have too much to add from my presentation yesterday, but I'd just like to reiterate my thanks to Saudha Arts for inviting me to contribute. It was wonderful to be among such illustrious and eminent speakers, and today's discussions and today's kind of insights were incredibly enlightening as well. I'd also, like Enrique has just said, I'd like to underline the enduring relevance of Ray, especially in relation to rekindling Ray's themes of humanism, of tolerance and equality. And there is a clear and present danger in the world we live in where fascist forces are trying to toxify our minds and drive us apart. So arts and culture can indeed bring us together. So let us continue to come together and have these conversations and kind of carry that flame of, you know, kind of cohesion and tolerance and togetherness. So long may those conversations flourish. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin. Professor Tapadhir Bhattacharjee, would you like to add anything before I end? Unfortunately,
Yeah, thank you, Kaishar, once again. And really, I am enlightened today because I've been able to listen to such illustrious speakers with the insights. I think it is, we may summarize in this way, that we are to find in ourselves the reason, the true reason why we are celebrating the birth centenary of Satyajit Ray, one of the greatest genius, and as I was telling you, the true representatives of Bengal Renaissance. That is humanism, enlightenment. And that kind of attitude towards life, which does not believe in any artificial barriers between different segments of humanity. And as some of the speakers have already enumerated or may have hinted at, and I have also tried to touch upon that, perhaps this is the most important reason because of which we are celebrating his life, his message to us. That is, we must realize that we belong to the great human family, and no bigotry, no fascist intervention can demolish it for all time to come. And the wonderful song which we all enjoyed, as was presented by Sanjay right now, we laughed perhaps, but it is a multifoliated aesthetic experience. And as I was talking of summarization, let me tell you in a very straightforward manner and without going into any dubious literary within quote way, that it is important to realize that not only the artists, those who are connoisseurs of art, they must also remain united and fight against all divisive forces which might try to dislodge them from that true goal of humanism, true goal of our life. Otherwise, as I was telling you, why we should revisit Devi today? Why we should revisit Ashwini Sanket today? Or for that matter, Ganashotru, enemy of the people, is the most pertinent in contemporary India.
True.
Let me tell you very frankly and in a very straightforward manner, without mincing any word, that Satyajit Ray is perhaps one of the most contemporary artists, even after his physical disappearance from among us. He is still very, very relevant, and at least till those days when we have not achieved the unity, the message of unification is it has not been accepted by all of us, he will remain relevant for us. And Sanjoy was so rightly, in a very beautiful manner, he has presented Mandoja Singhasane Chare. And this is what we are finding now in perhaps in not only in India, but also in many other countries.
True,
And
absolutely.
I think we are not required to tell everybody why Satyajit Ray is a master. We need not waste our time over that. But let us concentrate to find how we can use us for our today's fight. The fight which is not far from over, which is going on, and maybe in the next a few years to come, it will become more ignited. And let us ignite our soul with Satyajit Ray's message. And that's why we will be celebrating his life. We will be celebrating his art. We will be celebrating his humanity. So thank you. With these words, I think I have not spoken enough, Kaisar. So
thank you very much.
Thank you, Saudha.
Great. Thank you very much. Let us have the final input from Pushpinder Chaudhary, if you'd like to add anything anymore. Kindly, Pushpinder, if you kindly unmute yourself, you are muted.
I would just briefly like to say thank you for inviting me. I was introduced to Satyajit Ray's films by my dad. Being bred in Glasgow, we had the rare opportunity to go and see two people I remember my dad and thank him for is one, he took us to Ravi Shankar's concert as children and introduced us to Satyajit Ray's films because he was a great admirer of Satyajit Ray's work. Being a practicing communist, he actually adhered to the philosophy that came out of that. But for me, being here today is about that our film festival, UK Asians Film Festival, on 26th, which starts on 26th of May, is celebrating Ray's legacy. Our theme is Ray of Hope, which is so appropriate for difficult times that we are going through at the moment. And we are opening the film festival with Gautam Ghosh's film Rahagir, which so reminds us of the theme of empathy and humanity, and also migration, where people are migrants and looking for work for their daily food. And yes, a ray of hope indeed, as what happened in Bengal yesterday. And this is really very encouraging and looking up for us here, living away from India, but hoping that we do come out of this very, very difficult situation that we are in at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Pushpinder. Please count me in. I'm coming definitely on 26th of May to watch Gautam Ghosh's Rahagir. Anyway, Sangeeta Dutta, over to you now, if you'd like to add anything before we finish. You're muted. Unfortunately, you have to unmute yourself. Thank you. Is it? I can perhaps send you a request to unmute. and see whether you can.
It's happening.
Okay, great.
It's happened.
Okay.
I just wanted to say hi to Pushpinder. I haven't seen her for ages. Good to see you. Yeah, well, thank you again, Saudha, for organizing this. And I'm going to leave you all with just two thoughts which are in my mind at the moment. As I said, I got held up because the flights are banned and I'm sitting here in Calcutta, but I'm just so glad that I was here yesterday to witness what happened and to be able to feel the pulse of the moment and to really feel that, yes, when people want change, then change can happen. So one feels that that sense of change it's like a movement. It's something which is in momentum and it has started happening. So maybe it's a point of history of which we are a part. And talking of Bengal, about the entire Renaissance where we've had great minds shaping our history, shaping our culture. So looking from, that association of Upendra Kishore Rai Chaudhuri, the Brahmo Shamat, the Tagore family, the interaction between them, the influence of Tagore himself and Shantiniketan on Satyajit Ray. We are talking about a sort of a tradition of education, of thinking, of social conscience, of progressive movements. All of that Satyajit Ray belonged to. So when we are looking at a film or talking about this person, it's not just an individual, it is an individual who has drawn from traditions in history and culture and taken that forward. It's for all of us to remember that there is always this continuity in history, and particularly in cultural history, the sort of relationships that writers and directors and theater people, theater practitioners and filmmakers have, the sort of a body of minds coming together. Look at the adaptations of not just Tagore, but contemporary writers like Sunil Gangopadhyay that Ray often brought to the screen. So there is that constant dialogue between people, and therefore these become documents which are testaments to the times that they were produced. And you can go back and instead of reading a history book, you can see a film like Pratibdonti, or you can see a film like Jono Aruno and know what that particular time was all about and the dilemma of that time. When Satyajit Ray passed away, I was in Bombay and I was teaching at that time in St. Xavier's College, but I was also part of the Film Society movement. And very soon after Ray passed away, we had this momentous retrospective tribute of Ray. So we as adults again got the opportunity to see 32 films back to back. So I remember we would be teaching the whole day, but we'd come back and see 2 or 3 films. We'd be watching films till midnight. But that span of 10 days when we saw all the films again chronologically together and then as formulated adult minds, that became, I feel for me, it was again that landmark time when you got to see an auteur's work in a series, not just as fragmented films that you see once in a while, but to just see the evolution of a mind going right through. And as Adur sir was saying yesterday, to our younger people, we have to bring them back to these films to understand what the language of cinema is, to understand what Ray's mind brought to celluloid, how he translated his thoughts into celluloid. For that, there has to be a lot of discussion with younger people and encouraging them to see films again. Last year, I was discussing Ray with a young student who's at the University of Berkeley, and I showed him Tapadhir Bhattacharjee, and he was quite distraught with all the poverty and the sadness and the grayness of the, because it was shot during the overcast monsoon skies. All of that together made him feel very distraught. But he responded in a completely different way to Shonar Kella. So again, we don't know what is going to be the beginning point for the next generation, but it falls on us really to make Ray relevant, to make them interested in the craft and the language of cinema. We have to keep trying to do that. So thank you again for asking me to speak, and congratulations to Saudha.
Thank you. Many thanks, Sangeeta Di, for joining and contributing this profound input on Satyajit's work. Like I mentioned, we are almost at the end. Over to you, Sanjay, if you'd like to add anything more.
So really, it's a pleasure to listen to so many lovely personalities, and it's really amazing to be a part of this Congress. And as I have said, that I'm a big fan of, as of so many persons, I'm a big fan of Satyajit Ray, and I started watching every film. And but Nayok, Aguntuk, Ganashutru, these are absolutely to me influenced me a lot. So thanks for having me.
But
Thanks to
unfortunately, the
Saudha.
one that I like most among Satyajit Ray's work is not that much discussed actually. Kanchenjunga is my most favorite.
Yes, I know.
I'm not sure how many times I watched it.
Satyajit Ray also mentioned number of times about Kanchenjunga.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm not sure why this is. This
It's rather
remains.
poetic, Asar bhai. It's very poetic film, I must say.
Exactly. On human relationship, that is, you will find very, it's quite rare in Indian context.
Yes.
Anyway, let us, we actually approach to the end. Many thanks to all of our speakers. That include Pomitananda Dash, Ponre, Shangita Di, Pushpinda, Ashwin, Sanjay De, Tapadhir Bhattacharjee, and Gautam Ghosh, who were the part of today's early phase of today's session. Adar Gopal Krishnanji, who joined yesterday, Buddha Dashgupta, scriptwriter Javed Siddiqui, and then Tanvi Mukammal, Roxana Tabassum, Gulrukh Khan, and then Professor Dr. Shumit Rai, Professor Sanjay Mukhopadhyay, and many others who joined as part of this Congress, and audiences who are watching, sharing, and supporting us in meaningful ways. All of our volunteers who worked from behind the scene, immense gratitude to all of you, and wish to see you soon again. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. Thank you, and good night to all of you.
Thanks to all of you.